the joviality seems suddenly to have dissipated. Mark Boylan has unwrapped his iPad. Neil Channing has lowered his glasses further down on his nose. Would you like to talk about Jamie Osborne, Neil? Who's
not massively. I actually thought it was quite a tricky subject, really. And I don't generally go through my phone and text anyone the night before and say, I'm doing this talking points thing and what am I going to say? But I did for this one.
And the reason being, because there's three blokes here.
Well, that was it. That was it. I wasn't sure what I wasn't sure of the running order. I knew who the guests were, and I thought I can see it being three blokes talking about something that some women will find, deeply offensive. Some women presumably would find the thought of someone furtively taking a picture of a body part without their knowledge scary. Some people might find it offensive. Some people might think that it puts them off going racing. Other women may think, isn't this just kind of pathetic? And don't we have a kind of tradition in the UK of carry-on movies and impotent men, sleazing and perving over women is kind of considered to be a funny thing. And I guess that's empowering for some women. I spoke to a young lady that works here at Racing TV just before we came on, and she said, yeah, you should see what it's like at the sales, and I couldn't care less what these people are doing, like let them take a picture if they want. Other people would be absolutely horrified, I think. I don't know. I did speak to somebody who said, well, shouldn't he be more exemplary considering his position in the sport?
I think that, in fairness to the, if you read the transcript, and if you have a view on this case, I would urge you to actually read the full details of the transcript. It's very well set out by the disciplinary panel and the barristers involved. It does recognise that element of responsibility if you are a licensed person. Yeah,
because Jamie Osborne employs presumably quite a lot of young women in his stable, and his daughter is a prominent person in racing, and I think that gives him a greater air of responsibility.
We've gone over the clock, which you're probably quite pleased about, but if you want to add, feel free to add.
No, having a whole pile to add, but look, just a bit juvenile. I think the embarrassment of having this the week before ASCO, who we're sitting talking about this, I think that's greater than any penalty really that you could be.
Do you think that, just a last quick thing, do you think that the media describing it always as bottom is kind of slightly belittling the incident? But there isn't really what word would you use?
What can you do?
But it sort of makes it a bit more kind of seaside postcard, doesn't it? A little bit. Like I don't know what.
I suppose you've got to stick to the facts, haven't you?
I don't know. Do you think people have taken it seriously enough in racing, or do you think it needs to be taken seriously?
I'd say it is roughly where it's at.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'd expect people at home are probably thinking if I say that, going on a training course to learn how to not be sexist is a good thing, they'll be like, people at home be throwing stuff at the TV screen and saying, listen to him with his woke nonsense. But I don't know. Hopefully Jamie's not doing that.
Should we move on?
Yeah, why not?
Charles Byrnes.
Oh, that's easy.
That's a nice easy one.
We've gone from one easy one to another easy one.
Lovely.
Right, what's Charles Byrnes done this week?
Yeah, there have been a troublesome time, I suppose, in that camp for the last little while, and the latest incident at Sligo, stewards weren't happy with the running and riding of a horse there, and in fairness, I think watching it back,
I watched it back. Yeah. It was ridiculous.
Well, look, you wouldn't be happy if you backed the horse, I think, and that's the view the stewards have taken. There's been no appeal lodged since. Tom Kelly, who rode the horse, he came in and reported that the horse had gurgled on the way around, and the Byrnes has outlined a history with the horse physically. It was a first start for them. There were factors like that were put forward, but the stewards ultimately came down and suspended the rider, suspended the horse, and I feel if you're going to apply rules like this, we see different cases every day of the week. You like to be strong on it, but I thought this one in particular, you could very much understand where the stewards are coming from. It's not a good watch.
Remind me of the amount of money, Nick, because I've forgotten that the IHRB decided they wanted to save by not partnering with the BHA betting intelligence people anymore. It was quite a low number, I thought.
Mark's probably likelier to have a grip on that.
No, we talked about it before and we couldn't remember. But I feel like, while they may have, kind of come out quite strong here, don't you have to slightly question how serious they are about this kind of thing if they're penny pinching on something like that, where it's pretty important.
It's the value of it, Neil. Like I sat in on one of these cases before, the Charles Byrnes case at Wexford in the claim and hurdle, and I felt that the betting evidence that was produced that wasn't BHA referenced, your podcast covered a comprehensive view. There was evidence that wasn't used. What was put forward by the data company that came in, I thought it was shambolic. It was absolutely all over the shop. But you would wonder, is the fact that there wasn't BHA evidence referenced, that there wasn't that strong enough to put forward. So, there is a point of having it there, but it's whether it's catching all the relevant things. If there is a case, I'm not suggesting there was in this instance, but you want to make sure that if you pay the piper, you have to have something to deliver.
But do you think more generally, like Irish racing has a slight problem with integrity? And we had, not all that long ago, we were talking about racing stables and the cameras and stuff like that. I mean, it feels like they're not spending the money to make sure that the sport is 100% pure.
Listen, I know it might sound like with green tinted glasses on, but I don't think it's an Irish only issue. I see plenty of rides over here that I objection with, and I think by and large the product is pretty good, but cases like this, it's hard to stand here today and tell you that it's. But the stewards have done their job.
Yeah. Fair.
Can I talk about an incident here this week which has again thrown regulation into a stark light, particularly in the aftermath of the controversy surrounding Benvenuto Cellini in the Derby. Now, we all know what happened last week. We spoke to Brant Dunshay about it. One of the questions I asked him on this show was what happens if a horse rears up and it's halfway through rearing up when the stall's open. That is exactly what happened at Yarmouth a couple of days ago, and the horse was declared a runner.
And this is the issue when you have precedent like the previous week and a punter, doesn't get a run, doesn't get money back. A punter did, to an extent, get a run in the Derby, does get the money back. So I think whether it's review of that rule, that there needs to be more clarity on the parameters around it, because the stewards are trying to implement what's in front of them. I have sympathy for the stewards. I wouldn't be in the camp, but we should have had Benvenuto a non-runner. I think as a punter, maybe it's just the way we're conditioned in this part of the world. You put your money down, you accept what happens. But I would have far more grievance here at Yarmouth backing that horse.
I'm definitely one that thinks, once it's under starters orders, you're a runner and that's it. And if you do your money, you do your money. I bet plenty of horses at Cheltenham this year that didn't have a prayer because of the starter. There was a horse at Hexham yesterday that planted itself at the start, but was on obviously a jumps race, and that was declared a runner. This horse at Yarmouth, I think you had way less chance of winning your money if you bet this horse at Yarmouth this week than you did if you bet the Derby
I agree.
last week. So, most punters will just look at it on that basis and say, well, which horse did you have a chance with and which one did you have no chance with?
So is there a way of knocking this rule into a bit of shape, do you think, and providing some clarity?
I think it's very difficult. I mean, I've got sympathy with the idea that the BHA and racing jurisdictions around the world would like their rules to be harmonised, if that's the right way of putting it. And yeah, that's a great aim to have, I think. But I do think that, I don't know, I can't get into the minds of Japanese or Hong Kong punters, but I heard somebody from Australia last week saying, oh, well, we're just quite used to this and punters expect that and blah, blah, blah. I don't think, we're just different over here. Punters don't expect it. I don't think anyone who bet the Derby favourite was screaming for their money back.
My sort of take on it is if you are culturally conditioned to bet only parimutually, then the likelihood of you using that horse in your wagering strategy is significantly higher than it would be here. Because if you didn't fancy Benvenuto Cellini, you just didn't back him. Whereas if you're a punter who likes to think, right, well, I think he might be a bit vulnerable, but I'll have him in my calculations, in my exotics. That's another huge swathe of bets that you're then casting to one side. But that's not the way that we are conditioned to bet.
You're rolled with the punches here. That's the common culture.
And we've probably exhausted this subject for the time being. I would think most of you were probably sick of it by about midway through last Sunday afternoon. But anyway, Yarmouth put it back on the agenda. Ryan Moore, MBE. I should also mention Kirsten Rousing, CBE. I know Ms. Rousing has been in the wars a little bit lately, so I hope you are recovering speedily, and I hope the CBE has had that effect. And Ryan Moore, well, I think he might have got something a bit higher than an MBE, personally, if you like these things. I wouldn't imagine you're a man who loves the honours system, Neil, but...
well, you're not supposed to say, are you, if you've refused one, so I'll just brush over that part of it for a second.
Arise, Sir Neil.
I think it's time to change the name of it, for sure. I think, you know, we could call it the I don't know, the Medal of British Excellence, and then I'd be celebrating.
Now, the point of this was not for you to politically posture about the honour system. It was to acknowledge the achievements of Ryan Moore.
I'm just speaking up for the people of Kenya, the people of India, the people of Ireland.
You must be really thrilled that he's speaking up for the people of Ireland.
It's really helped me this morning, hasn't it? I'd like to know from your point of view, like when I see something like this in the news as an Irish person, I'm wondering, does it help Racin's case to see someone like him on those listings? Is that something that would...
I think it can't hurt, can it? I mean, like, putting aside the fact that I'm not in love with the honours system, you know, I'm a Republican, but I can see that if the royal family come to the Derby, that's good for racing.
I'm staggered that he hadn't had one already.
Yeah.
Honestly, given all those winners he rode for the Queen.
Yeah, that's true.
You get a member of a winning Test side or a winning Ashes side. They all get blanket OBEs or MBEs or whatever. And he was riding the Gold Cup winner for the Queen 15 years ago.
And today I was a chance with Diamond Necklace to complete the full set of French classics as well, actually. It'd be a first time you'd be able to do that, and a fair chance of doing so, I think.
Yeah. How good do you think Diamond Necklace is relative to Precise and True Love?
At 10 furlongs, I'd have 10 furlongs and a mile and a half, I'd have Precise ahead of them. At a mile, obviously, I think I'd be a Precise candidate.
Who do you think is going to leave the biggest legacy on the sport of those three fillies?
Ooh, very good question. I would say from a breeding standpoint, I think Precise with the Star Spangled Banner, speed influence, Aidan feeling she can get further, that could be a very interesting bloodline, and Aidan has harnessed that, and Anne-Marie with that. It's a really, really exciting family.
I was going to say Aidan and Anne-Marie would be pleased with that answer. For sure. John Gosden was, I thought, really interesting in an interview with Lee Mottershead, the big read in the Racing Post today, where, to paraphrase, well, actually, I don't need to paraphrase, because I've got it right. I can tell you...
Very organised this morning.
I can tell you exactly what he says. Anyone who doesn't think Ballydoyle's domination is a problem is being naive on the Derby. He also says we've become a decadent nation in life generally. I see a lack of work ethic, and he means you. And the government doesn't want to listen to what they're doing is a complete dereliction of their duty.
I can guarantee you I've schlepped around more betting shops than he has this week. I've been grafting my absolute fingers to the bone.
Contributing to the sport.
Exactly. Well, maybe. I'm hoping to take out rather than put in. But I do think the Derby thing was quite interesting in terms of... you know, slightly, it begs the question, what does he want to happen? If they stop supporting the Derby, it wouldn't have any runners at all, would it? Slightly. Does he really think that because the reason that the Derby doesn't get more interest from UK trainers is because they say, well, we're banging our head against a brick wall, we can't win?
It's the concentration of quality in one space, isn't it? It's what he means.
And you are dealing with a world-leading organisation who specialise on this type of horse specifically. I would say that maybe you look at the horses that have won the Derby, the last four have been stakes winning juveniles. You know, they're horses that are hardy. Part of his complaint, I think, in reading Lee's piece, is he doesn't like the race as a slog. And you're no more than likely there are horses going to be going forward to make it a true test. You know, we have a horse like Water to Wine, who has been a maybe slower, maturing horse. He mentioned pushing the Derby out to July. I wouldn't like that with a view. Well, there's an Irish Derby on the 28th of June and Grand Prix de Paris soon after. He clips King George all in July. I think it's not the answer. But you do get a little bit of the case where if it is the same type of horse winning every year, difficult to market it and make it feel special. But, you know, you still have a Desert Crown a few years ago. It was pretty exceptional. City of Troy. I still think there is that magic with the Derby. And I think the efforts around the race to market it better will help. But
we've had two soft ground, one soft ground and one extreme ground.
The word flog been used, that's the biggest factor.
Yeah.
Well, we also, you know, there's also a wider point, isn't there, that we're in a world where it's very hard to make training pay unless you have a mega stable these days. You know, if you speak to trainers, they'll tell you can be a boutique stable with 30 horses or you can be a mega stable with 200, but what you don't want to be is the guy with 65. And that's probably a problem for the sport.
Another problem for the sport at the moment is Haydock Park, which has had to cancel its next 4 fixtures because work continues investigating the hole that led to all that confusion on Temple Stakes Day. And what they're suggesting now is that historic mining activity in that region, it was a very intensively mined area, is causing instability in the surface. Now, Dan Cooper said he was confident that racing would resume at some point this year, but this is a major blow to the Jockey Club's finances.
Well, there's always been a lot of talk about Haydock as well as a track. You'd imagine this thrown into the mix is something that you're trying to control, which is very, very difficult to get a handle on. They're waiting, obviously, on the survey reports thing fully to come back. But this is not what you'd need if you were looking at a track from an investment standpoint. You're reducing income, but also how much work is going to be required to get this in the position we need it to be. You know, we can't have, we're talking about welfare on every front, trying to get horses correctly. You know, the track being presented in a fashion that leaves them without that risk, that's just, it's a non-negotiable.
Well, also, when you think back to that day, you know, 40 minutes of 3 blokes walking around with a stick was enough to say, yeah, I think it's all right. And now we got like 5 months off or whatever. Like, I mean, it kind of makes you feel like they really must have got away with it on the day.
The radar technology that is now needs to be used to determine what's going on there is something that other racecourses have used preemptively. Ascot did it after their trials meeting. I know Goodwood did it when they put the new irrigation system in a little while ago. Is it come to the point where the BHA simply have to mandate racecourses to undertake these sorts of surveys?
I never like knee-jerk reactions to things they get when, by and large, we don't see this as an issue. But I think in an era where watering is having to be more prevalent, maybe there is a case to be made that you have more of a wide-reaching review of these structures, because we're probably dealing with more unprecedented times at watering. You're asking different questions of land that have ever been asked before. So I think from a welfare standpoint, that would be welcome within reason.
OK. There is an update to the Pierre-Charles Boudot situation. You'll remember, I'm not sure whether this was a week ago, we discussed this a week ago, and he'd been exonerated, or the charges against him had been dropped. The prosecutor has just contested the dismissal. Now, Boudot came back yesterday, Mark, at Compiègne.
Second yesterday, Compiègne, yeah.
And just got a translation here of Jour de Galop this morning. The information was revealed Friday evening by France Info in an article by investigative sports journalist Thierry Vildari. The legal case against Pierre-Charles Boudot has thus taken a new turn after now this is obviously Google translated, so bear with me. After the dismissal pronounced on June the 5th by the investigating chamber of the Amiens Court of Appeal, the two plaintiffs, and this is the important bit, and the public prosecutor's office have decided to appeal to the Court of Cassation to contest this decision. This appeal does not immediately overturn the dismissal. As long as the court has not ruled, the jockey continues to fully benefit from this decision, so I'm guessing he can continue to ride. The highest court does not, will not re-examine the facts or the testimonies, but will only verify whether the rules of law were correctly applied and whether the judgment is sufficiently reasoned. If the appeal is deemed admissible, the usual timeframes for an appeal to the court suggest the case will not be examined before the beginning of 2027. So that is the latest in the case of Pierre-Charles Boudot, and those were this week's talking points.